Morning, glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. I'm Hugh Hewitt in the ReliefFactor.com studio. Good morning to you. Time for the rundown. The biggest news around the planet yesterday. It's not what you think. It's in our ally, Israel, where Benjamin Netanyahu has won his fifth election. He is going to serve his fifth term in what he calls the biggest election of his life. He has secured 59 seats for the center-right Likud right-wing bloc, astonishing all onlookers. Now, only 90% of the votes have counted. Maybe he'll go down to 58 seats. Maybe he'll get up to 60. Either way, he will be asked to form the next government, and it is expected that he will be able to peel off the necessary 61 votes to form a coalition and will be prime minister at least until unknowable things happen when he goes on trial in a few weeks. But the Israeli people voted for Bibi overwhelmingly. They dance around and sing King Bibi at the Likud rallies, but that they're really recognizing is that while a good third of the country just hates the man, he is its leader and will be for the foreseeable future. And our strongest ally in the world, because it has nukes and a willingness to use them and a willingness to use all of its weaponry and a willingness to fight when it needs to fight, our strongest ally in the world is led by a conservative visionary, and I'm a big Bibi fan, as everyone knows, so you should not be upset. It should not be surprised that I am very excited this morning. Joe Biden has a pulse. That is the other news of the day, because Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar both dropped out of the race yesterday and endorsed Biden. Will it be enough to slow Bernie Sanders tonight? I don't think so. I believe Bernie's on his way for a big night tonight, a huge haul of delegates. But remember to fill out your ballot from top to bottom. Whether you're in Virginia, my home state, where I voted by absentee, I voted top to bottom. Or if you're, that was easy because there was only a presidential primary. Or if you're in California, where there are like a bazillion, vote no on all the initiatives. Always vote no on initiatives. Vote in local elections, like for Catherine Barger in L.A. County. She is a terrific supervisor, hard by the mothership of my West Coast outpost at KRLA AM 870. Vote for Dr. Ken Williams for the Orange County Board of Education. There are people up and down the ballot you need to support. Barger, Williams, all sorts of people across the country. Whether you're in Texas, where last night Biden was trying to pull out a last-second win with Amy Klobuchar and Pete Buttigieg. I personally do not believe that the Buttigieg people are going to go to Joe Biden. I believe a lot of the Klobuchar dozens will. There are only dozens to be had, but I do believe they will go towards Joe Biden. But Joe Biden had a tough day yesterday. He had a tough day. First of all, look, for those of you who know, we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are, well, let's hear Joe tell it. Cut number 2.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by, you know the thing.
You know, created by the thing. Oh, you know the thing. Let's play that again. Cut number 2. That's going on my board. Cut number 2.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by, you know the thing.
You know the thing. And then Joe said, come out and vote for me on Super Thursday, even though it's today, Super Tuesday. Cut number 3.
Look, tomorrow's Super Tuesday, and I want to thank you all. I tell you what, I'm rushing ahead, aren't I?
Yeah, you are, Joe. You're rushing ahead like this is all in one speech. We got 3 complete pratfalls in one speech. Cut number 4, Joe, in the same speech, talking about how many votes he got Saturday in South Carolina. The narrator will tell you the truth.
Because of the African-American community, primarily in South Carolina, we ended up increasing the turnout. 150,000 more people than even voted in 2008.
That's not true. Barack Obama got 295,000 votes in 2008. Joe Biden got 256,000 votes. So he was flubbed. He couldn't remember the Declaration of Independence, and he lied. Then we dug up this from the Today Show, courtesy of my friend Dick. Go faster, Dick. I know you're up. I know you're working out. Go faster on the treadmill. Joe said, you ought to go look, or Dick said, you ought to go listen to Joe Biden on the Today Show in 2009 talking about SARS. This is the kind of calm, presidential-like advice you want from a commander-in-chief. Cut number 1.
I would tell members of my family, and I have, I wouldn't go anywhere in confined places now. It's not that it's going to Mexico. It's you're in a confined aircraft. When one person sneezes, it goes all the way through the aircraft. That's me. I would not be at this point, if they had another way of transportation, suggesting they ride the subway. So from my perspective, what it relates to is mitigation. If you're out in the middle of a field and someone sneezes, that's one thing. If you're in a closed aircraft, a closed container, a closed car, a closed classroom, it's a different thing.
So there you have Joe's calm. I guess everyone should not fly anywhere. I've been flying. I'm flying next week. I'm on vacation. Colonel Kurt will be in Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Bob Franz will be in Thursday and Friday to once again do penance for pushing Sam Darnold on the Browns. Luckily, I turned that away. Now he wants us to, you wouldn't believe this, he wants us to draft a wide receiver. Bob Franz wants the Cleveland Browns to draft a wide receiver, but I digress. Joe Biden on CNN with Jake Tapper. I'm just running down the Biden on Super Tuesday because I want you to vote for Bernie. I'm just reminding you about Joe Biden. Here he is with Jake Tapper yesterday, cut number 5.
I think it's very important that they have a commitment from the Taliban that, in fact, they are not going to support Al-Qaeda. They're not going to support those organizations that use the Western Pakistan and Afghanistan to launch attacks against the United States.
I'm sorry to interrupt, sir. The deal does say that the Taliban will not aid Al-Qaeda. Now, it doesn't say that they will renounce Al-Qaeda, but it says that they will not aid Al-Qaeda.
Thank you, Jake. Then Joe Biden goes down to fact check by Jake Tapper, and then he goes to tell this great news to every gun owner in America, cut number 6.
Well, look, that Trump would appoint Mike Pence as the head of...
Wait, number 6.
I'm going to guarantee you this is not last year's scene of this guy. You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one who leads this effort.
Okay, who is Joe Biden talking about going to take care of the gun problem with you? Let's listen again to cut number 6. This is Joe Biden anointing the gun czar for a future Biden administration.
I'm going to guarantee you this is not last year's scene of this guy. You're going to take care of the gun problem with me. You're going to be the one who leads this effort.
You know,
I'm counting on you.
About our favorite furry in chief. There, I did it. Smug will be happy. Beto or Rourke. Beto is going to be the gun guy. Honestly, you think it can't get worse every single day, and it gets worse. And now I got to tell you something about coronavirus. 92,153 cases worldwide, 3,127 deaths, including 6 in the United States. It's in Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Florida, and Georgia. It's in the Northeast. It's probably across the entire United States. 3,127 people have died worldwide, but 6 have died in the United States. Can we do a little bit of relevance, please? We are on the alert. We're doing the right stuff. The Pope got tested. Remember, the Pope's vanished for 4 or 5 days. People were worried about the Pope. I didn't say anything, but everyone was thinking the same thing. He was out in St. Peter's Square. Did he get coronavirus? No, he does not have coronavirus. He has a bad cold. But he did the right thing. He got tested. But he met with people in between, which was the wrong thing. So not a lot of papal wisdom there. But just remember, how many people die every year in America from car accidents? Generalissimo, do you have a guess? How many people die in America from car accidents?
Like one of the leading causes of death.
No, 36,000.
I thought it was like 100.
No, I just looked it up. I used my Mr. Google. 36,000 people die from car accidents every year in the United States. So you got a lot more to worry about driving to work today, which is why you should be listening to me and paying attention to the road and not playing with your texting. 36,000 people. You don't go freak out. We're doing the right stuff everywhere in the world for the, I got asked yesterday, why aren't we calling this the China flu? We called it the Spanish flu in 1918 to 1920. Why aren't we calling this the China flu? The Spanish flu was, by the way, misnamed, and it should have been called the Kansas flu. It began in Kansas, but they called it the Spanish flu because that's where it first showed up and people wrote about it. Why aren't we calling it the China flu? We don't want to be mean to the Chinese. But the fact is, you don't have to worry about the China flu. It's a lot easier to say than COVID-19, and Joe Biden would be thankful because I'm not sure he can get to 19 when he counts the right way. But really, tonight, hear my appeal. Bernie. We're down to a 4-person race. Bernie and Liz Warren, Mike Bloomberg, and Joe Biden. And of those 4, the least ready to be president is Joe Biden because he has lost not 1, not 2, not 3, but he's lost a whole block of steps. And you know it, and I know it, and the right thing to do is to vote for Bernie and set up the choice the country has to make. Bernie versus Trump. That's what you want to do. Bernie versus Trump. Coming right back, America. Big win for Bibi. Big win for Likud. Hooray. That's the good news. Plus, markets rebounded yesterday, and they look like they're going to do it again today. Lots more. That was the rundown for this morning. Tuesday, Super Tuesday, March 4th, 2020. Welcome back, America. It's Super Tuesday all across the United States. Way up in Minnesota, cold. Temperatures have dropped to below 50 degrees below. I'm making that up. The guy looks actually kind of normal on the television right now, but it's a little bit colder to go there than it is in Southern California where I am. I've already voted in Virginia because I knew I was going to be absent. Hey, you know what it is? It's Lent. Now, many of you have different Lenten observations. The Catholics among you might like, I am a Catholic. I say the rosary. I try to at least daily. But I also, along with the Fetching Mrs. Hewitt, we make almsgiving part of our Lenten practice. We find food for the poor is the best way to do that, at least once a week. I want to thank each of you who've already donated to my Food for the Poor campaign, which I like to run at this time of the year because a lot of people are reminding themselves that what you do for the least of these, you've done unto me. And Food for the Poor delivers food and water, the essentials of life, to the very poorest parts of many parts of the world, including Guatemala, where our friends at Traps went down with them this year. And they went and talked with the children of Catalina Gomez. That's a center in the mountain community of La Culabrala. Tom tried to pick that because he knew I wouldn't be able to say it. La Culabrala. And these children are just wonderful, who spoke through a translator. Listen.
I always have the hope and the attitude to go out and find something for me to give the family.
Por lo menos había que sufrir con amor a Dios porque no se puede hacer otra cosa.
The United States is a big country because there are a lot of people that from Guatemala, they travel to the United States and they send money to the families here. So I would say to people in the United States that if they have the possibilities to help people like us that are living in extreme poverty, I will ask them to please give something from that they have.
Yeah, Tom and Lori tell us that it's actually kind of impossible to imagine what these mountaintop villages are like. We just don't have any concept of it. But Food for the Poor labors among the poorest on the planet, and your generosity goes to them. So if you're able to afford $320, that's $27 a month, you'll feed a family of 4 for a year. And you'll be blessed for it, but the reason to do it is because you were blessed to be a blessing. Hop on HughHewitt.com or call right now, 855-359-4673. That's 855-359-4673. And bless a starving child through Food for the Poor. Now, it's also a good time of the year to be very smart. I've been telling you, yesterday there was this stock amazing explosion, right? The Dow rallied 1,294 points yesterday, the most in its history. And Donald Trump is out this morning, yesterday, saying, come on, Fed, make a big cut. Let's stay. Australia made a cut. Malaysia made a cut. Overseas stocks are up in Hong Kong. They're up 2% in Germany. They're up 2% in England. It looks like it'll be a great day on the American stock market. Again, I'm not a prophet or a son of the prophet, so I can't tell you. But yesterday was such a great day. But guess what? The interest rate, this is for AndrewandTodd.com, brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian, they're mortgage lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, 888-888-1172. I never thought I'd say this. The 10-year Treasury is at 1.09%. You can usually get great interest rates on your 30 and 15-year loans when it's at 1.8, 1.9, anything below 2. It's just barely above 1. So if you're ever going to buy a house or refinance, go and call them today, 888-888-1172. They will have a realtor for you. If you're moving from Seattle, and I know a lot of you listen to me up in Seattle as you drive, and I get replayed up there. I play 6 hours straight. If you're leaving from Seattle with Amazon, you're going down to Arlington, call up Gordon Wood. He's the best realtor in Northern Virginia. He works with AndrewandTodd.com. Or if you need a realtor anywhere else in the country, just call 888-888-1172 and talk to Andrew Todd, one of their great team, and say, I need a realtor. They'll fix you up with a realtor, and they'll fix you up with a loan. One of the best loan environment ever in the United States is right now. AndrewandTodd.com. I must tell you, light crude is up a lot today, up to $48.27. That's up 3%. That means the market is figuring out coronavirus isn't going to kill everyone. It's going to make a lot of people have bad colds, like you probably know. It did kill 6 people in Washington State. I don't minimize the tragedy of their deaths. They're in an old folks' home. It's very hard on old people with prior respiratory impairment. It's very hard on them. It's pneumonia-inducing. But if you're in your middle years, you know, very young are always threatened. But if you're in your middle years and you're in good health, you're up to 70 or 75 or 80, you're just going to be fine, people. Don't panic. And you're not a smoker. Good another reason not to smoke. Coronavirus isn't going to kill you. Watch out for the car in front of you. That person's probably texting. And go to AndrewandTodd.com fill out a couple of questions. I'll be right back to you. Do not miss this window. And don't forget, it's Super Tuesday. Go vote for Bernie, Bernie, Bernie. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
I know that. Good morning, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. I know that my favorite running song is Africa. Keep this up for a second, Adam. Africa's Toto. But I must say, when I'm out there in Newport Beach, Huntington Beach, some people call me Wave Master, some people call me Flash. And this song comes on, I just pick up the pace. Like a lightning bolt going past you. Because it's a perfect, not quite John Androsic, but it's pretty doggone perfect. Speaking of perfect, we were out to dinner last night with good friends. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt and I were celebrating, the old friends are the best. And they've been friends with us for 40 years. So we had like 120 years of friendship. And 4 of them had seen the Today Show. Now, normally I'm asleep during the Today Show when I'm in California. I do the show out here. It's a morning drive show in the East, and I'm normally in Virginia, but I'm out here for a couple of weeks doing some stuff at the Nixon Library and covering up close and personal the California primary. And then I go back to Virginia. But so I don't see the Today Show at all. And Mark Wahlberg, who's everybody's favorite actor, now it's the era of Tom Hanks has ended. Now it's the era of Mark Wahlberg, good guy. And I would love to interview Mark Wahlberg, but our 4 friends, Monica and Steve and Gary and Jan, say, you've got to see Mark Wahlberg on the Today Show. Fetching Mrs. Hewitt doesn't watch 1 minute of television at all unless it's appointment viewing. She just does not watch TV. And I watch very, very little that's not sports. I get my news from reading. So I said, okay, I'll pull it. I have not heard this. Let's hear it together. Yesterday, Mark Wahlberg on the Today Show with Harry Smith, cut number 30.
The thing I'm most intrigued by is that you take time every day to pray.
That's the most important thing. I take a day off. I take 2 days a week off from the gym now. I don't take a day off from getting on my hands and my knees and reading my prayer book and my daily devotionals and first of all, expressing the gratitude that I have for all the blessings that have been bestowed upon me. And then, of course, asking for the strength and guidance to be able to use the talents and gifts that God's given me to help others and inspire and know what right is and to do so. Be the best husband I can be, best father I can be.
How much time does it take? How much time does it take?
It's funny because as I meet people along the way and I add people to my prayers, if I see somebody in the public eye or that I read in the newspaper, somebody that's struggling, somebody that has a child that's having, health issues, stuff like that, I add them to my prayers. And I usually end up keeping them in my prayers. So it's now like, 20 minutes of praying, actual praying, and then, my reading and stuff like that.
Right. Do you have favorite scripture?
The daily devotional every day. I think, the idea of being good soil and bearing good fruit, where it's sprinkled, how it's used, how you absorb that information. Do you really retain that information? Those are the more powerful things.
How does it inform your day?
It just puts things in perspective, I remind myself every day how fortunate I am, and how blessed I am, and how so many people are not. And to be able to just kind of, remind myself what I should be doing, how I should be doing it. To be a positive, productive member of the community and the church. It's what's keeping me going. I think if I've been put in this position for a reason, it's not to forget about where I came from. I have to utilize these talents and gifts that have been given to me to help others, to inspire others. So that's a challenge, because if you're given all these things and you don't do the right thing with them, it's not going to be good.
There is a verse in the Bible that says, to whom much has been given, much is not expected, but actually required.
Yes, of course. And you think about those talents and gifts that you were given. Somebody was given one little gift and talent, and he didn't want to take any risk. He didn't go and utilize it and get his tenfold on his investment, and he buried it in the ground. And God didn't like that.
He's not impressed.
No, not at all.
It's amazing to me to be in the business you're in, and for us to be sitting here having this conversation. Does anybody ever ask you about it? Does anybody ever say, any of your colleagues say, what do you get out of it? Or does anybody ever say, I read about you doing all this Bible stuff?
Yeah. Look, I will not hide the fact that I love the Lord and that, I want to be committed to serving the Lord, but I also don't jam it down anybody's throat. But it's better to never have known God than to, deny God. I mean, that's not a good look. That's not a good look. So that being said, there are people that I'm close to that I will send devotionals to and try to encourage them. It's like when people dealing with loss, and it seems like now, as I'm 48 years old, dealing with a lot more loss now than I ever had. It seems like every other day I'm losing somebody that I know that I'm close to. And so, when people are dealing with loss and knowing that, it could be devastating to somebody, but also what comfort and joy does it bring when you know that there is something else? There is now no more pain, no more suffering, an eternity of love and joy and all of those things. And even if you live to 150, life is still short, right? So I don't know. It gives me comfort.
Does it make you a better parent?
Yeah. I pray for the patience. It's also too with my kids. I want to be an example to my children. They're getting a faith-based education, but I don't force them to go to church with me. But they know that it's not even an option for me to not go to Mass or to not take my time to pray and to do those things. And hopefully they'll say, wow, well, that works for Dad, and maybe they'll get a little bit more curious and they'll slowly start to gravitate towards that.
Right.
But I got to be an example, with my work ethic, with my commitment to my faith, my commitment to my family,
right,
and those things. So.
Have you ever heard anything like that on the Today Show? God bless Harry Smith. Now, I, of course, wish I was talking to Mark Wahlberg, as I would ask him and explore the roots of his belief. What part of his family, from which did it come? Was there a nun? Was there a priest? Did he learn his Baltimore Catechism? Whatever. But I'm sitting here thinking of Isaiah 55:11. So my word that proceeds from my mouth will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I please, and it will prosper where I send it. It's prospering with Mark Wahlberg. Now, if you were convicted by Mark Wahlberg doing that, which does not require any little amount of courage in the business that he's in, it requires a lot of courage in the business he's in. Now, he's a big superstar, and whether he's making the oil rig movie or he's making the Boston Marathon movie or any of that requires no little courage to do that. Do you have the courage to go over to Food for the Poor and help somebody out at HughHewitt.com? That's what I would do. Repay him just for speaking that bluntly and that truthfully to that many million of people who haven't heard anything like that. That used to be routine in the days of the Champagne Bishop, right? Archbishop Fulton Sheen. People would run into the gospel. They couldn't help but run in. But now they never do. In a secularized world, they never hear Mark Wahlberg. That stands out in a secularized world. Not on this show, not to listeners of this program, but to most people who watch the Today Show, they're just not going to hear that unless they are believers who go to church on Sunday. But if that touches you, at least become an almsgiver. That way lies redemption. Go to Food for the Poor, Feed Starving Families button at the top of HughHewitt.com, or call 855-359-4673. I did not plan to make an appeal on that, but I just think if that moved your heart, respond to it. And then Food for the Poor will write you back. You'll do something first, then follow up on it with the Gospel of John. It isn't that hard. Now let me go back to politics. Wasn't that amazing? That was just amazing. I want to say something about Chris Matthews. I'm not going to replay his sudden exit from NBC. I do not know the circumstances. I know I love Chris. Over the years, I've never seen him do or say anything inappropriate, but I have not seen him that much. I've probably run into him 200 times. I've been on his show many dozens of times, dating back many dozens of years. I've never seen him do anything other than talk politics with me and greet me as a reprobate with a wry smile. I mean, he thinks I'm a lost sheep. He knows I'm an Irish Catholic, and he knows what am I doing on the dark side of the Republican side, but with a grin, with a knowing smile, with a peripatetic approach, with an unbelievably unusual, rapid fire, incoherent sometimes approach. You just have to listen to the words. He's not unlike Donald Trump. He's a lot like Donald Trump. You have to be able to speak Chris Matthews, and I do speak Chris Matthews. But he made some reference last night to his being out of touch with the way people are today. I don't understand that, because the old school Catholic way is never to offend women in any way. I don't understand. I do not know. I do not judge. Do not judge lest thee be judged. More scripture for you. But I will say this. Thank you, Chris, for a lot of entertaining political analysis. I will see you again at the Nixon Library, where you will be welcome. And I wish you well. It's got to be sudden and jarring. We all talk about retirement. We all eventually will retire. He's got 10 years on me. I hope I may work 2 more. I may work 10 more. I don't know. But whenever I might get hit by a car today, or I might get coronavirus tomorrow, the bad kind. I don't think I'm ineligible. But I would hate to retire without preparing to retire. That would be tough. Then all of a sudden you're sitting around your house wondering, what am I going to do? By the way, it's Super Tuesday. Now I want to go to hardcore politics. It is important for every Republican in an open primary state to vote for Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders. Donald Trump tweeted yesterday the Democrats are trying a coup. They're trying to stand up Joe Biden, who will wobble around, and they're going to try and get a nostalgia vote for the good old-fashioned Obama voter when President Obama isn't on there. Joe Biden is not competent to be president. I know that you anti-Trump people say he's not competent. Yes, he is. You don't like him. You don't think he's very smart, but he's sharp and he's got energy and he knows which room he's in and he knows what day it is and he knows what he's talking about and he remembers what he remembers, even though sometimes he remembers wrongly. Joe is a completely different order of problem. And you know it and I know it. And so do not vote for Joe Biden. Go vote for Mike Bloomberg if you want to vote for a, quote, moderate. He's no more moderate than I am a skydiver. I've done it a few times. But no, I'm just saying, the best thing that can happen for the country is the choice that ought to be put before it between socialism and free market. That's what ought to be done. By the way, Donald Trump said this about rallies, cut number 8.
Well, these were set up a long time ago, and others are. I mean, you could ask that to the Democrats because they're having a lot of rallies. They're all having rallies. That's what they're doing. They're campaigning.
But do you think it's safe? Are you worried at all?
I think it's very safe, yeah.
You see what the media does? They say, "What are your rallies safe, Mr. President?" Meanwhile, who's having the rallies? Not just the president. Everybody's having rallies. But they ask the president because they want to embarrass the president. It just makes me crazy. Oh, well, honor-bound coffee makes me sane. Honor-bound coffee is something, it's another Lenten observance, because not $1 of profits, all of the profits, 100% of the profits from honor-bound coffee go to support military families and in their many ways. Right now, honorboundcoffee.com is supporting the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund. Honor-bound coffee is started by Pete and Seth Talbot. They are wonderful. There are 4 different grinds and 4 different blends. I've got the dark roast in my hand. That's what I'm drinking this morning in my honor-bound coffee. And right now it's time for me to have my ReliefFactor.com, which is also produced by Pete and Seth Talbot. They started honor-bound coffee because ReliefFactor.com has been so successful because older people like me can go out and run 12 miles and still feel pretty good because of ReliefFactor.com. And you can open the package very easily, and you can get out the pack very easily. And you can take this, and you can swallow it easily with my no longer lukewarm coffee, thanks to Donna, my Karen Kirkman Resveratrol Omega. If you're watching on Univision, and if you could be if you were a member of the universe, which you should join, Honor-bound coffee in my Relief Factor pack, all in one. Go and get it done. Relief Factor costs $19.95. Take it every morning like I do. You will thank me for it. When we come back, we talk about what's going on Super Tuesday. And we celebrate the big victory of Likud in Israel with David Drucker of the Washington Examiner. David M. Drucker on Twitter. Stay tuned. We're playing This America on the Hugh Hewitt Show. For everyone who's on a treadmill, pick up the pace, people. Toto always makes you go faster. Joined now by David M. Drucker of the Washington Examiner. Dapper David joins me to make his Super Tuesday predictions. We're going to have a prediction off right now between Hewitt and Drucker. Good morning, David. How are you?
Hugh, I don't like the sound of this.
Oh, here's the prediction. All right, Alabama. Who's going to win Alabama tonight?
Hugh, I'm not in the prediction business. Let's just say that we know Bernie Sanders is going to rack up a ton of delegates. The key for Biden is if he can keep this thing super close. And if he can keep this thing super close, then he's going to keep the support of voters and the party that we've seen gravitate toward him over the past few days. And he'll have a chance in some of these upcoming elections to surpass Bernie Sanders in the delegates.
Does he have any shot at, since you won't play predictable with me, I wanted to, find out if you think he's going to win anything tonight. I think he's probably going to win Oklahoma. He may eke out Texas. And if there's any place he's likely to win, it's Alabama. Agree or disagree?
Look, I do think he will win some states. Definitely. I think the key is, does he roll up some delegates in the states with the most delegates? And because of the way the Democratic Party apportions delegates, we know that you don't have to win to keep a lead growing. So Bernie Sanders could lose, let's say, half a dozen states, right? There are 16 states and territories voting. He could lose half of those voting. But if he can do extremely well in Texas and California, for example, and we know he's going to do well in a few other places.
He's going to get smoked out here, David. I'm in California. He's going to get smoked. Not only is he not popular, he doesn't have anybody on the ground. I'm on Biden.
Right. I was talking about Bernie. We know that Bernie Sanders.
Oh, Bernie. Okay.
Right. So if Bernie Sanders can do not just well, but extremely well, then it's possible that Joe Biden, even if he were to win half the states and territories voting, then it wouldn't be enough. And so the reason I'm so hesitant to make predictions is, one, Biden could have a really good night and it could not be enough. Or he could have a really good night and it's enough to keep the momentum rolling. Or he could have a really poor night because, as you mentioned, he doesn't have the kind of organization on the ground and the money that has gone into all of that Bernie Sanders does. I just think it's really volatile, and I think it's hard to predict.
He's going to be punch drunk at the end of the night, but no one's going to be able to notice. I want to know what you think happened yesterday. Who polled? Did President Obama get involved in this? Because for Buttigieg and Klobuchar both to drop out when they were going to pick up a bag full of delegates, they had to get made an offer that they couldn't refuse. I think they got offered cabinet jobs.
Yeah, well, let me offer a counter view. And maybe Obama made some calls, maybe he didn't, and it's possible that he did. But if you look at the polling for Klobuchar and Buttigieg, and you look at the rules where you have to get 15% of the vote statewide, and then you have to get 50% of the vote in each congressional district, or in Texas, each state Senate district, to be eligible for these two different batches of delegates. They weren't necessarily on target to achieve that. Number one. Number two, I really think Trump is the worst thing that could possibly happen. Then you need to put your money where your mouth is. And the third thing I would say, and this is where comparisons to Trump between Bernie Sanders and Trump don't add up. Trump, when we were able to look back, had a really good, even with 30 to 35% of the vote in each primary, had a good cross-section of Republican voters and showed that he was able to make inroads with voters that were possibly inclined to vote for Democrats. And Bernie Sanders hasn't shown any of that. He's been very weak with African Americans. He hasn't shown an ability to make inroads with soft Republicans. And so I think the party itself is looking at a front runner who is weak, where President Trump, even though he didn't win Wisconsin and he was taking advantage of a split field, was showing an ability to get votes across the board with the party and make inroads across the aisle. And so you have two different situations here. And I think that's why the Joe Biden victory in South Carolina created the momentum and the movement in the party that it has over the past year.
I'm far more skeptical of that. And I'll tell you, here's my data point, another one. Yesterday, Monday, March 2nd, out came the High Point, which is a nonpartisan poll in North Carolina. Bernie Sanders up 8. This morning, out comes the Data for Progress, a Democratic poll that shows Biden up by 9 in North Carolina. Okay, 17-point swing over one day when one is a Democratic pollster and the other one is a straight pollster. I think every oar in the Democratic Party is working to push Bernie overboard and get Joe in there for reasons that just I do not get. I do not think he's electable. I think the slowness problem is very real. Last 30 seconds to you, David Drucker. Do you see a concerted effort by establishment Democrats to do to Biden what establishment Republicans tried unsuccessfully to do to Trump in 2016? Push him out.
Well, yeah, they do, because they don't agree with most of his policies, and they think that he's unelectable. Look, whatever Biden's flaws are, they see a candidate with a better chance of beating Trump in the states that matter than does Bernie Sanders. And look, Bernie Sanders is not somebody with close affiliations throughout the party. He's somebody who regularly beats up the party. And I think that Bernie Sanders would be more potent if he had stronger support with more of the key constituencies that make up the Democratic coalition. That's something Trump had that Bernie does not have.
I must tell you, though, it's going to enrage, and it should enrage Bernie Sanders people if they have this stolen from them. And it looks to me like a theft is underway. David M. Drucker on Twitter. We'll talk after Super Tuesday votes. Get out there. Remember, if you're in California, Catherine Barger in L.A., Ken Williams in Orange County, way down at the bottom of the ballot. Finish your ballots wherever you are, whether you're in Alabama or Minnesota, on the East Coast in Virginia, on the West Coast in California. Finish your whole ballot, people. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Morning glory, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. Likud has won a huge victory. Benjamin Netanyahu has won his fifth term as prime minister. In all likelihood, 59 seats going to Likud. They think they can shave off 2, 3, 4 more from the opposition to form a government. No fourth election. That's the great news from Israel. We get a big election tonight. We turn to Byron York of the Washington Examiner and Fox News to find out what's going to happen. Byron, your friend David Drucker would not look into his crystal ball with me. Will you?
No, I won't. Actually, you can look a little bit into the crystal ball.
All right.
Here's the thing I think. After Nevada, I thought Biden was dead, and he just didn't know it. So tonight, if Biden does well in a bunch of states, I'm not going to think that Bernie is dead. He just doesn't know it. I'm not going to make the same mistake again.
Okay, well, that's a good resolution, but that's not a prediction.
All right, well, look at Bernie is going to win California. Bernie, let's see. Let's go to the list of states here. Biden is going to do well in Alabama. He's going to do well in Arkansas.
He's going to do well in states that the Democrats have not a prayer of winning in the fall, right?
That is part of that, but there are also there's an interesting regional thing going on here. Obviously, Biden did not do well in Iowa, New Hampshire, and Nevada. He does great in South Carolina. He's going to do well in Alabama. He's going to do well in Tennessee. He's probably going to do well in Texas, although that would be a comeback for him. He's going to do well in North Carolina. These are southern states. We've got this regional thing going inside the Democratic Party. Don't know exactly how that's going to play out, but states that do have significant percentages of black voters, as in South Carolina, it appears Biden is going to do well in those.
All right, now, Byron York, you follow this pretty closely. I want you to be patient with me. I've got to run down my Biden board to remind people as they go out to vote today about this, quote, electability argument for Joe Biden. I don't think he's tougher than Bernie for this reason.
Let me tell you, I think I'm more in step with the lingo than any of them. Come on, man, come on. Play the radio. Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone. Iran is 14 million people. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. My name's Joe Biden. I'm a Democratic candidate for the United States Senate. I'm the guy that came back after meeting with Deng Xiaoping and making the case that I believe China would join if we put pressure on them.
Nelson Mandela walked out of prison and entered into discussions about apartheid. I had the great honor of meeting him. I had the great honor of being arrested with our UN ambassador on the streets of Soweto trying to get to see him on Robbins Island.
Why am I stopping? No one else stops. Sometimes I wake up and I think it's 1920 and not 2020. Who in God's name needs 100 rounds and a bullet and a clip with a gun you have?
And I can get that done on health care by building an Obamacare with a Biden Medicare option in it. I can do this in terms of Ebola. In terms of dealing with the issues that relate to
we set up a whole
what we put
system on the
together.
Ebola virus and with the Ebola disease that we were all concerned about, a trans-pandemic disease that if someone in this room got up, took off all her clothes and walked out the door, no man has the right to touch it. Look, I know why I'm running. I'm running to make sure everybody has adequate health care and their taxes don't go up exponentially. Guess what? If you elect me, you're not going to have your taxes are going to be raised, not cut. If you benefit 3,900 of them right here in the state of South Carolina. Well, I'm looking forward to appointing the first African American woman to the United States Senate.
Mr. Vice President, thank you. Thanks for your time. Please come back in less than 13 years, sir.
All right, Chuck. Thank you very much.
All right. It's Chris, but anyway.
Chris. I just did Chris. Yeah. Number two, they haven't even prepared a test kit to determine whether or not anybody has the virus. I would tell members of my family, and I have, I wouldn't go anywhere in confined places now. It's not that it's going to Mexico. It's you're in a confined aircraft. When one person sneezes, it goes all the way through the aircraft. Look, tomorrow's Superstar Tuesday, and we hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Well, I got to play that last one more time.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
So Byron York. That's my board.
You rest your case now?
I rest my case. That is only, and we're just building it out. We're not even trying very hard.
I have to say the Declaration of Independence is now, it's got to be like top 3 ever.
Well, we have a competition. It shifts all the time, but
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
it doesn't really compete with.
Play the radio. Make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone.
That's really my favorite, Byron.
I have to say, my favorite prior to this had been, my name is Joe Biden. I'm running for the U.S. Senate, because it really did show.
My name's Joe Biden. I'm a
living.
Democratic candidate for the United States Senate.
It really did show.
There you go. It did show him living in a different era. And that's important to voters, because voters look ahead. And I have always thought, and this could be totally wrong, but I've always thought the voters are not going to. How long did Biden serve in the Senate? Was it 36 years?
I don't know. Longer than Moses wandered in the desert. Honest to goodness, he's been with us. He's a feature of every American narrative since I've been alive.
I have thought that voters will not make president a man who spent 36 years in the United States Senate, for the simple reason is that tells you that he is a senator.
Yeah.
He's not a president.
He's Foghorn, Cleghorn, and we haven't begun to look at his vote. So I honestly believe Bloomberg or Sanders is a better competitor. Why then who put the arm? Did Obama get involved? This is what Drucker and I were speculating about. Did Obama get involved with Biden, with Buttigieg and Klobuchar?
It certainly happened really, really fast. And we know that Obama did talk, at least with Buttigieg. I don't know if he talked with Klobuchar. And then we also saw things like yesterday, while all this was happening, all of a sudden Susan Rice endorses Joe Biden. And so it does look like the Obama team, not the former president himself, but the Obama team just went boom for Biden. But the thing is that Bernie's been going a long time. His voters are very loyal. The most loyal of them thought that he really got the shaft in 2016 and are determined to make things right this time. They're not going anywhere. And there has been this. Biden obviously has had an extraordinary 72 hours. There's no doubt about that. But it is kind of foolish to look at Buttigieg's voters and say they're all going to Biden. The same with Klobuchar. And I don't think you can predict that. Also, you can perhaps even assume that this will have some unintended consequences. For example, in a larger field, it's harder for any candidate on the lower end to hit 15%, which is the threshold to win delegates in Democratic primaries. But in a smaller field, let's say one without Steyer, Buttigieg, or Klobuchar, a smaller field, it is easier for those candidates, and not just Biden, to hit 15%. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out. It might not play out in the obvious Biden wins it all way.
Now tell me if this sort of thing has an impact.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
All right, so we find it amusing because it's such a bad gaffe. Does it reinforce the growing consensus that Joe has lost, not just 1 steps, but a half a lap?
Well, he did so well in South Carolina. If he had not just won South Carolina in a blowout, I would say yes. But everybody knew he said things like that when they voted for him in South Carolina. And I will say, let me say one thing about him losing a step. The morning after the debate in South Carolina, he goes, there's an event with black preachers in Charleston, and then he goes to another event where he gets James Clyburn's endorsement. Then he goes to about an hour up the road to Georgetown, South Carolina for a rally. Then he does interviews, and then by the evening he is back for an hour live town hall on CNN. This is, that's a pretty demanding schedule. And he did it, and he, did a number of days like that. I'm just throwing that out.
Oh, energy he's got. I'm talking about mental acuity, and I'm asking one other question. We got 30 seconds, Byron. 20. How angry will the Sanders be? Leave the party angry if they steal this from Sanders?
Some of them will be, absolutely.
And where do they go?
They go nowhere.
They go home. I think they go home. That's why I think the Biden thing is suicide for the Democrats. But we'll see. It's up to them. Don't go anywhere, America, except to vote today. Byron York, thank you. Follow him on Twitter at Byron York, and follow me to the next segment. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt, Joe Biden music. During the break, we saw a help I've fallen life alert ad. And after this...
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
We need a meme of the Joe Biden help by fallen I can't get up ad. Someone's got to do that because Joe Biden has rhetorically fallen so many times. This one's in the all-time 3 list.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
You know the thing.
Of all the gaffes that he's done, and there's been,
we got gaff catalog.
Triple digit, right?
Yeah, we have a gaff catalog.
This has got to be top 5, top 3.
I think we could run a gift store with Joe Biden gaffes coffee mugs and have an entire wall. I was at the Nixon Library yesterday looking at the new merch. We ordered, brought in probably the best merchandise consultant in the United States, and said when I took over the library and said we need new merch. It's an old collection. It's not geared for. We got hundreds of thousands of people coming to the Nixon Library, so she selected all this new merch, and I'm looking at the different stuff that people want, and you can tell the difference between what people bought 15 years ago and what they buy now, by the professionals. And so we need a Joe Biden merch collection of Joe Biden mugs and stuff.
Like for Valentine's Day, the little candy hearts, little Joe Biden
sayings
on the candy hearts.
But my favorite one is still...
Play the radio. Make sure make sure you have the record player on at night. The phone.
That's my favorite.
That's actually really good. But I'm telling you.
Can you just whip up a meme, a life alert meme for Joe Biden? I've fallen. I need help getting
I've fallen. I can't get up.
Help.
I think that's the Joe Biden campaign tomorrow.
That is tomorrow. I fall. I can't get up. That might be tomorrow. Okay, you have your work to do tonight. Look, let me tell you about food for the poor. Let's get serious for a second here. Our friends Tom and Lori Tradup went down to La Culebra. Why would you even give this to me, Tradup? Why did he do this to me?
How is it spelled?
It is spelled L-A capital C-U-L-E-B-R-A-L-A. La Culebra. It's a poor place in Guatemala that is desperately in need of help. And Tradup did it because it's like, Gru. Tom Tradup is like Gru. He really is. He has minions and they cook this stuff up. I'm trying to get people to make almsgiving part of their Lenten practice by giving to the poor people of this village and to the children of Catalina Gomez in the mountain community of this village I can't pronounce. And all you have to do that is go to HughHewitt.com and click on Feed Starving Families banner at the top. For $80, you can bless one child in that village, which I cannot pronounce, but which I know. Culebra?
Culebra.
No, it's La Culebra.
La Culebra.
No, it's a La Culebra La.
La Culebra.
Why does it have... Oh, he did it twice. It's typed out twice. That's it. La Culebra. I got it. Now it's not so hard. But please be generous. Those kids are hungry. Tom and Lori, I trust Lori. Tom I wouldn't trust with, finding the keys. But I trust Lori to come back with the honest to goodness truth about how desperate they are. And Food for the Poor gets your money to them in the form of food and clean water. And it's a great Lenten practice. You can call 855-359-4673 or go to Food for the Poor banner at the top of HughHewitt.com. Let me check what the markets did overnight. Time for AndrewandTodd.com. It's a big story. The big story of the day, and AndrewandTodd.com are lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage, 888-888-1172. Best place to go is AndrewandTodd.com, AndrewandTodd.com. And I am telling you, if you are moving from Seattle to Arlington, Virginia, and I know there are about 10,000 of you who have to do it in the next 2 years, call up Gordon Wood, the realtor in Virginia. Call up Andrew and Todd at 888-888-1172. Find a house, buy a house, because right now the 10-year treasury is at 1.09%. The story of the day, the Dow rallied 1,294 points yesterday on Monday. 1,294 points. And right now the England exchange is up 2%, 2.22%. The German exchange up 2.63%. Why? Because coronavirus isn't going to kill that many. It's going to kill a lot of people. It's going to kill old people with impaired immune systems. That's very sad, but America loses 36,000 people to automobile accidents every day. The central banks are activated. They're pumping money into the system. All will be well. Get your mortgage refinanced, consolidate your debt, and get money out of your house with AndrewandTodd.com today, and come right back on Super Tuesday. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Free falling Joe Biden and the Declaration of Independence. Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt, joined by the Washington Post, Robert Costa. You can also see Robert every Friday night on Washington Week in Review, and the news of the week are mulled over, chewed over, and by a group of just down-the-middle journalists. What happened? They'll be talking about Super Tuesday. They'll also be talking about last night's election in Israel. Big win for Benjamin Netanyahu. Bibi is back for a fifth term, although he's only at 59 seats. They need 61 for a working majority. Bob Costa, how surprised were you by the thumping big win for Likud last night?
Not that surprised. I actually live next to the Capital One Center in Washington, D.C., and before I flew to Burlington, Vermont yesterday, they were doing the AIPAC conference, and a lot of support for Netanyahu despite all of his legal troubles, and he remains such a tight ally of President Trump. That's a huge factor for Israel that wants to see itself protected. To have that kind of relationship with the United States is seen as a very powerful thing by a lot of people at that conference.
Now, you know, Bob, one of the things I noted about the election last night in Israel, I stayed up way too late reading Times of Israel, Haaretz, and the Jerusalem Post, is a deep bitterness at Haaretz, which is the New York Times of Israel. I mean, a deep, unreconciled bitterness. The night they drove old Israel down was what one Haaretz columnist said. And it reminded me of the way that Manhattan Beltway media elites reacted to the election of Trump. And I'm wondering if the Bibi appeal isn't similar in many respects to the Trump appeal, the anti-establishment sort of tinge of anger. What do you think?
Oh, there's definitely a lot of that, and they both have become friends, not just because of their shared view of the world and different policies, but because of their overlapping personalities. They are people with big personalities. Netanyahu, growing up in the Philadelphia area, comes from the Northeast, just like President Trump comes from New York City, and they both have a certain swagger and political combativeness to them.
Right. You know, what's interesting to me is that let me phrase this the right way. I find it disquieting that elites are unwilling to accept elected verdicts of the people, mediated through the institutions. In Israel, it's a nightmare, right? 3.5% parliamentary threshold in the United States, the Electoral College. But we have these mediating institutions, and they're unwilling to let in. I don't sense that in your panels on Washington Week in Review. But boy, we sure do have a lot of colleagues in our business who are not reconciled to Donald Trump even to this day, Bob.
He was elected president through the Electoral College. He's been president. Cover him as I would cover any other president, vigorously searching for the truth and do it as unemotional as possible.
Well, I think you do it that way. I actually think you kind of set a standard that I wish a lot of you and Michael Shear is also on today. The two reasons I come to you guys is that you just the facts, ma'am. That is an approach for non-opinion journalism. It's not my approach. It shouldn't be Rachel Maddow's approach. But for people who are on the front page of the paper, it should be their approach. I was really stunned by Israeli media. Let's talk about tonight. I think Bernie Sanders wins big tonight. How big do you think he will win, if at all, Robert Costa?
I think he's going to win big in California. He has put such an effort in there. And he's going to have some success in some states because of the dropouts. I mean, the dropouts are consolidated around Biden, and that's going to help Biden to a point. But in a state like Minnesota, where Sanders drew a huge, enormous crowd on Monday night before flying back home, he's going to do well in a sense because Klobuchar's gone. If he can win Massachusetts, Minnesota, California, but the big states to watch for Sanders, California and Texas. If he can win Texas as well, and those are the two big prizes, then he could come out of Super Tuesday with an almost, not totally, but almost insurmountable delegate lead. But Biden, he's rushing to consolidate, and it could be, he may have enough time to catch up.
And the map turns towards Joe's favor, except for Mike Bloomberg. And let's now talk about Ohio and Pennsylvania. Ohio votes on March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Pennsylvania's an April primary. It should be all over but the shouting by then. But Ohio could be dispositive here. I mean, really could make the difference. I can't call Ohio, but I do know Sherrod Brown's going to matter a lot. Has Sherrod Brown declared yet, Robert Costa? I simply do not know.
He has not declared, and he's going to be an important voice. He's someone who could drift towards Sanders because of his viewpoint, though he's not really a Medicare for All guy, or he could easily drift toward Biden, Grant, and Joe. I think Georgia's going to matter in a big way. Sanders is strong in Wisconsin. That's a huge primary coming up as well. But the big one after Super Tuesday, Michigan on March 10th.
And I also believe that Nina Turner, who is the African-American former state senator in Ohio, is accompanying Bernie around. She is fiery. She knows Ohio. I know she knows that state up north as well. It's going to be fascinating. Now, you're a Pennsylvania kid. Does Joe just have a built-in advantage there that cannot be overcome?
He does. I think it can be very difficult for both Bernie Sanders to win in the primary because of, you think about Philadelphia suburbs beyond just northeast Pennsylvania and Scranton, but you get the Philadelphia suburbs, Pittsburgh. That's Biden country in a lot of ways. It was Clinton country. And in a general election, it would be very difficult for President Trump.
All right, now I want to switch over to Bloomberg. I need you to switch over to not handheld or to handheld. Get rid of it because you're fading in on me there, Bob. The fact of the matter is that Mike Bloomberg said last night on CNN, I believe it was CNN, he's in it to win it. He's in it to the very end. He repeated it in Virginia. Do you believe him?
Based on my reporting, Bloomberg could get out this week. He's still not made any kind of decision.
Whoa, really?
Well, he's going to watch the results in Super Tuesday. He's not made a decision to quit the race at all, but options are on the table. His people are looking at the strength of Joe Biden and wondering, can he really pull this off long term? And that's why he doesn't want to get out of this race, because he does wonder long term, can Biden really take on Bloomberg? Excuse me, can Biden really take on Sanders all the way to Milwaukee?
Yeah, that's the first I've heard that whisper. That's a scoop that it's even on his mind. Let me play for you. I'm not going to give you the full Biden. I did that to Byron York earlier, but let's talk about this from yesterday.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Now, you know, my full Biden, Robert Costa, you know the thing, is not just one. I've got 9, 18, 23 gaffes, only one of which is not from this year. 23 gaffes. Now, President Trump has got a fact check list that is thousands long. He is, as Conrad Black says, truthful hyperbole is to him as a puff talk is to a car salesman. But does Joe Biden have a gaffe problem that's even bigger than what we are used to?
In any other year, Biden would have a significant problem because these things would dominate the headlines. But with coronavirus, with President Trump being such a dominant personality, and with the presidential race itself unfolding in such a turbulent way that there's news every second, it's hard to see this becoming a story that lasts more than a few days. But for some voters, it may give them pause. But a lot of voters also who I've spoken to on the campaign trail, they know who Joe Biden is. They talk about Biden like they know Trump. They say, we know President Trump, we know Biden, we know their flaws, but we know their strengths as well.
It's the famous Selena Zito. They know they take him seriously, but not his words seriously. And I do believe there is some of that, but there's also going to be an issue about whether or not age is a genuine issue here. Joe Biden has promised to put an African-American woman on the Supreme Court. He also made a gap and said he put an African-American woman for the first time in the Senate. But running mate would be an enormous thing. Does he pull the Ronald Reagan 1976 Hail Mary out and name a running mate before the convention, Robert Costa?
He just might. The name at the top of a lot of Biden allies is Senator Harris, and they think she would be someone who could give him a major presence in Washington, someone who's not only a woman of color, but someone who's a lawyer and a prosecutor. But after last night, there's a fluid list in the eyes of many Biden allies. He gave a very passionate, personal speech about Pete Buttigieg, said he compared him to Beau Biden, his late son. So you never know exactly how these things play out. But there is a belief that the Democratic coalition, people of color, women, union people, they all need to have a ticket that they feel comfortable with at the end of the day.
Now, Mike Bloomberg bought 4 minutes of prime time last night for a presidential address. I didn't see it. I don't think people watch TV that way anymore. Did you watch it? Did it have any impact?
He has been a savant when it comes to advertising this cycle. But at this point, his debate performance has left him in a difficult position. Many voters I'm speaking to say, hey, we're just not ready to go behind Bloomberg. They're now looking back to Biden. I mean, the Biden revival is the stunning story of this race, that it was moving toward Bloomberg if he could just close the deal.
I think it's going to be a dead cat bounce. We will see tonight. Robert Costa, I'll be watching you on MSNBC tonight. Costa reports on Twitter for the latest in the reporting. You heard it here first, that it's actually on the table, that Mike Bloomberg might throw it in after tonight. We'll check back on that. Thank you, Bob Costa. I want to tell you about Honor Bound Coffee, which is right here in my hand because I'm drinking it in my Honor Bound Coffee mug. It is no longer lukewarm thanks to my friend Donna, who gave me the new cup warmer. HonorBoundCoffee.com. I use it for one reason. Pete and Seth Talbot put it together. It's a subscription service. It's the best coffee in America. 4 different blends, 4 different grinds. You like espresso, you like drip, you like French press, you like whole bean. I'm personally a drip guy. And I've got the dark roast here, but I prefer the light roast. But there are 4 different roasts, 4 different grinds, 8 different choices. 2 bags for the price of 1 to start your subscription. You'll never have to buy coffee again. You'll never have to remember to put it in your cart. And every sip of coffee that you take will remind you that there are men and women far afield on ships that are sailing the oceans and in the sky above you, dug in around the world in places you don't know about and don't want to go to, in harm's way, tired, exhausted, away from their families. Honor Bound Coffee helps them by helping those organizations, such as the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, deliver the services that those military families often just do not get, the kind of stuff you have no idea that goes on, sudden mood, sudden illness, sudden needs. Honor Bound Coffee helps fill that gap. 100% of the profits, 100% of the profits from Honor Bound Coffee go to those groups that they have credentialed and checked out, like the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund. Please join me in drinking Honor Bound Coffee exclusively, and please join me in getting your ReliefFactor.com. Say you're a poll worker. You're getting ready to go out and spend all day dealing with Bernie voters yelling at you because they think you're cheating, or you're going to be dealing with Biden voters who are as befuddled as the candidate. You know what I mean?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
You know the thing about Relief Factor is that it works. You know the thing. You might be right, Dwayne. It might be number 1. You know the thing.
I'm telling you, this is a contender.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing. Let me tell you, I think I'm more in step with the lingo than any of them.
5th graders know this, right?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the
He
thing.
gets hung up on the creator. Yeah. He's Catholic. How do you get hung up on the creator?
I don't know, but I know the thing about Relief Factor is that it works. I carry in curcumin, resveratrol, and omega. I know the thing about Relief Factor. $19.90. I know a few things about Relief Factor. $19.95 gets you a starter pack for 3 weeks. It's made by Pete and Seth Talbot, that amazing father and son team that have now started Honor Bound Coffee as well. Serial entrepreneurs, serial successes, serial givers, backers. And they know a few things as well. They know, by the way, the Declaration of Independence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the
thing. I know the thing is that you got to give it a try. If you're commuting today and you're hurt, I was at the PT yesterday, Dr. Sadek. I told you I drove down, saw him. He's the chiropractor, RART therapist for the Chargers. He's also my guy. So I hurt this morning trying to fix that rotator cuff. I'm doubling up on the Relief Factor. I'm going to see if Tom Cotton can finish this sentence.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt on Super Tuesday. Remember, get out there and vote for Bernie. But we need to talk to Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas. The Arkansans are voting today, Tom Cotton. Is it an open primary down there, or is it closed?
Well, good morning, Hugh. This is indeed Super Tuesday, the day we've all been waiting for so long, the arrival of the latest C.J. Box Joe Pickett novel.
It is. And in fact, I'm talking with C.J. Box next hour. But it's also... I got to know.
There's also an election going on.
Yeah, there is.
Also an election going on. It is an open primary in Arkansas, Hugh, and I expect it'll probably be pretty closely contested between Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Mike Bloomberg. We do have party registration in Arkansas, but one can request a ballot of any party or neither party on primary day. And with the absence of any significant primaries in the Republican Party, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of our independent voters or even some Republicans draw the Democratic ballot this time around.
Now, I've got to ask you served when Vice President Biden was president of the Senate, did you not?
I served for 2 years in the Senate when Joe Biden was vice president.
Okay, does this surprise you?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
Could he swear you in?
Well, when he swore us in, he did have a note card to read from. But Hugh, I've heard that a couple times this morning. I got to say, I don't know how to interpret it. On the one hand, it could just be Joe Biden once again forgetting some of the most basic things about America's political life. Or it could be that Joe Biden caught himself short because he didn't want to reference our creator, thinking that he might alienate Democratic voters. And frankly, I don't know which one is worse, Hugh.
They're not good. Well, let's turn to some good news. I would like your reaction as a member of the Senate Foreign Armed Services Committee to the stunning win by Benjamin Netanyahu. It is true they are only at 59 seats in the right-wing coalition led by Netanyahu. They need 61 to govern. It is expected that they will find 2 from among the center-left coalition to defect and form a government because nobody wants a fourth election. What is your reaction to that news, Tom Cotton?
I congratulate Prime Minister Netanyahu. It's been a long time coming, and it's been a pretty tough slog through 3 elections in 10 months. But 59 seats is a very convincing victory, and I do believe that they'll find at least a couple parliamentarians who are not ready for a fourth election, and this will truly establish Benjamin Netanyahu as one of the great statesmen in the modern history of Israel, and he's been a great partner for the United States as well.
Now, as I read last night obsessively about the Israeli election, I was struck by Haaretz, which is the New York Times of Israel. It's the left-wing paper of record in Israel, and it's really, when I say left-wing, it's really left-wing. Deep bitterness. I'm talking about the same kind of bitterness that I saw up close and personal in 2016 when Donald Trump won. They do not view it as legitimate when they lose elections. And this is a problem for the West, Senator Cotton. Elites are becoming self-anointed arbitrators of who can rule.
That is a real problem, Hugh. Not just in Israel, as indicated by Haaretz, but also the elite media in the United States that have never accepted Donald Trump's victory. And you also see it in Europe as well. Just look over the last 20 years, the number of times European voters have rejected ever greater integration of the European Union only to have their elites in their capitals overrule them. It's time for our elites, whether they're in Washington or any of our partners, to recognize that ultimately the people rule the government. The government does not rule the people.
Do you believe the media is trying to blame the China flu? And I just call it that because everyone knows what I'm talking about as opposed to COVID-19. Do you think they're trying to blame Donald Trump for the China flu?
Yeah, of course they are. There's no doubt about that. The president referred to that phenomenon, blaming him and his administration as the Democrats and the media's latest hoax. And then, of course, the media proved his point by claiming that he was saying the virus is a hoax, when in fact he's the person who made the decision that was not popular among Democrats. In fact, Joe Biden called him xenophobic for shutting down travel with China. That's done the most to keep us safe. It's, again, just an example of how the Democrats and the media and other elites simply refuse to accept the fact the American people elected Donald Trump in 2016, and looks like they may very well do so again this year.
I have said before coronavirus appeared that Ron Klain's appointment to run the Ebola task force was a fine thing back when it occurred. And I read everything Ron writes about it. I don't believe this is a partisan issue. But I don't believe that Democrats are saying the same thing about Mike Pence. I see them attacking Mike Pence when, in fact, all I've seen from the vice president is cool, calm competence. Agree or disagree?
Yeah. I agree. The president made a good choice to place the vice president in charge of this effort. There are only two people in the entire executive branch who are elected by the American people, and no one in American government has more authority, more democratic accountability than a vice president. There are many good scientists that are working on the task force that is meeting constantly, and I know many of them. I've worked with many of them over the last 6 weeks. But in the end, decisions have to be made that are policy decisions, not science decisions.
How do you rank their response? 20 seconds, Tom Cotton. How's the administration doing on the response, that which can be done, and the measure of whether or not it is being done?
They are doing very well. And again, I go back to the president's bold decision last month to shut down travel with China. If it wasn't for that, we would already have thousands and thousands of confirmed cases in the United States.
Senator Tom Cotton, have a great Super Tuesday in Arkansas. I appreciate your joining us. Don't go anywhere, America. Hour number 3 of the Hugh Hewitt Show straight ahead.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Morning glory, America. Bonjour, hi, Canada. It's a grim start to Super Tuesday in Tennessee. 9 people at least are dead in Nashville where tornadoes ripped through the town. At least 40 buildings destroyed. Authorities are asking you all to stay indoors if you're listening to me in Nashville or anywhere near there. And our hearts and thoughts and prayers go out to the people of that volunteer state as they struggle with that on day of Super Tuesday. I'm joined to start the hour by Michael Shear, New York Times White House correspondent. Follow him on Twitter at ShearM. Good morning, Michael, on Super Tuesday. Where are you?
I am just outside Washington, about to head into the office, but watching what's going on in all those 15 states. It's going to be an interesting day.
Going to be a long and I think dispositive day, because at the end of the day, if Bernie wins California by what I think he's going to win California, I do not know, even if President Obama makes formal what appears to have happened behind the scenes yesterday, that they can take this away from Bernie. Do you have any reporting on whether or not President Obama was involved yesterday in the Klobuchar and Buttigieg endorsements of Biden?
So, I mean, I guess it depends what you mean involved. I think it's pretty clear the sort of general lane that President Obama would be in terms of whether or not he would, sort of look for a more moderate candidate or a candidate that is, characterized by the sort of Bernie Sanders left wing of the party. I think it's clear where President Obama would be. I think what there has always been over the last year as the sort of Democratic primary got underway was that there's, deep fear on the Obama, on the part of the Obama sort of coalition, that if he were to take too much of a sort of heavy-handed role, put his thumb on the scale, so to speak, in determining who the Democratic nominee is, that would actually backfire, that would not actually be helpful in getting the outcome that he wants. And so, have there been conversations? And I'm certain there have been many conversations between the president, the former president, his top aides, and some of these people who are coming out and endorsing now. Whether there were, whether there's a sort of conspiracy, sort of a master plan, so to speak, that's now playing out. I don't have reporting to suggest that.
All right. Now, I want to turn to what happened yesterday and whether or not it's a forerunner or what's going to happen tonight. Yesterday, Benjamin Netanyahu won a smashing victory in Israel, 59 seats in the Likud-led coalition of the right. It is expected they will find at least 2 defectors from the blue and white to come and join them. There is a pushback from some of the parties against any left-wing members joining in a national party. They want to annex parts of the West Bank. They want to move forward with the Trump plan. But the reaction, Michael, in Haaretz, which I often compare to your paper in Israel, right? The dominant influencer of the sort of center-left to the left part of the country. All I can say is I read it obsessively last night. It's deeply bitter. It's so bitter about this election that the columns are the equal of any bitter column I've ever read in your newspaper. Is there a problem with elites in the world putting up with the fact that voters simply don't want to go their direction?
Boy, that's a big question. I mean, look, I think I'm not an expert in Israeli politics. From what I can tell, Israel has a feature of Israeli politics is similar to politics in the United States, which is that the country there and our country here have gotten far more polarized, and there's less of a middle and more people who are on either extreme of the nation's politics. And I think what that creates in both the body politic generally, and in the, if you want to call them the elites or the influencers or the people in the media or the pundits or the like, is it creates a more polarized and intense set of feelings on both sides. And so when, look, you've got a politician in Benjamin Netanyahu who is about to go on trial for corruption in 2 weeks in that country. And so you can imagine the feelings on the part of people who oppose his presidency and who have worked for this is now the 3rd election in a row in a very short period of time to try to remove him from office, get him out of office. People on that side are going to feel bitter. And I think, you sort of combine the natural bitterness that you would feel if you're an opponent of Benjamin Netanyahu with the polarization in that country. And I think that's what you get.
You see, I'm so used to using the left-right spectrum that to frame everything. Michael Barone has tried valiantly to correct that. It's not left-right, it's countryside versus capital. And that we saw that in Great Britain with Boris Johnson's stunning win. We see that in Israel with Netanyahu's stunning win. We actually look back at 2016 and we see the rural, sort of rural suburban divide versus the cities and the elites on the coasts. And I'm beginning to think it's not ideological. It's really about what Peggy Noonan once said. It's the protected versus the unprotected. And that's a different way of saying elites versus ordinary.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I think that's not. I don't think that's a wrong way of looking at it. But I also think that the overlay of left versus right isn't as wrong as you suggest, because I think that what has happened in the country is that the country maybe has, and this is I think in our country as well, perhaps in Israel, if that's the way it worked out, is that the country has sorted itself, so that the partisan it is true that it is increasingly a rural versus a kind of coastal country, but that also the Democratic overlays on the coast and the Republicans are in the kind of rural middle of the country, and so I think I think both things can be true at the same time.
Perhaps Florida remains the one coastal state that is, I think, light red heading deeper red. Michael Shear, let me play for you yesterday's Joe Biden gaffe. I'm not going to give you the full Biden. I did that to Byron, York yesterday, which is a total of 15 gaffes over the last 6 months. But here's the most recent one.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
Do you know the thing, Michael Shear?
Yes, but look, I mean, I think that anybody who is surprised by Joe Biden gaffes at this point, after decades and decades of them, I should have their head examined. I mean, this is a guy who routinely makes those kinds of gaffes. I think, reporting on the trail this time around has been that it's been, quite prevalent, as you say. You could play 15 of them, and you could probably find another 15 after that.
Okay. So is there a double standard with the fact checkers checking Donald Trump and elite media pronouncing him a serial liar, what Conrad Black, author and entrepreneur, pronounces truthful hyperbole, and the way that they treat Joe Biden gaffes? And to be specific, they are forgiving of the latter and they are condemnatory of the former.
I don't know. I'd have to take a look at sort of a sort of fair comparison of that. But yeah, look, I think the media should hold Joe Biden to the same standards as we hold Donald Trump. And if he says something that is demonstrably false, we should call him out on it. I also am one of those that thinks that the media sort of writ large shouldn't, whether it be Donald Trump or whether it be Joe Biden, shouldn't jump on making too much of innocent, there's all politicians on both sides of the aisle that are in a particular state giving a speech and they forget which state they're in and they say the wrong state. Big deal. I mean, I think those kinds of gaffes, should be treated like what they are, which is, kind of innocent sort of mistakes that anybody can make when they're standing up in front of thousands of people and speaking. I think the more important thing is for the media to hold everybody, both sides, Democrats and Republicans and everybody else, to account on serious misstatements of fact. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, I just don't think people have confidence that the media has a level. By that, I mean the tool by which the bubble stays in the middle, not on the level. I think most reporters try and be honest, but I think there's a prism that is distorting it. Let me take you to coronavirus quickly, Michael, because you're covering the White House. I think the White House response has been as good as any White House response could be. I think Pence is on top of this. I think Fauci is doing a great job, and I think the president often gets in the way of his own message in this regard. But how do you think it is perceived that Pence is doing?
Look, I think the last several days have been a real change from the previous couple of months. The White House apparently plans to hold a daily briefing, a daily coronavirus briefing now every day that Vice President Pence will lead along with the other officials. I think from a journalism standpoint, from the standpoint of trying to sort of get out the facts of what's really going on, that seems like a really good idea, and I think it stands in stark contrast to the kind of the lack of regular communication that had been going on before. And as you say, in that vacuum, when there hadn't been regular communication about this from officials, what you had was a bunch of contradictory messages, often contradicted by the president himself. So to the extent that they are doing this in a more kind of regular way, I think that's a good sign.
Do you think Trump gets the credit? Well, Tom Cotton was just on last hour and said Trump stopped airplanes very early from coming from China. Gets no credit for that. You think that's true?
I think he's got a point there. Yeah.
Always great to talk to Michael Shear because of candor like just then. I appreciate it, Michael. Follow him on Twitter, Shear M, and follow me to the next segment on this Super Tuesday Hugh Hewitt Show. And don't forget, get out and vote for Bernie.
Portions of the Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by
22 minutes after the hour, America, joined now from Israel by former Israeli ambassador to the United States, former deputy minister in the Netanyahu fourth government, Michael Oren. Dr. Oren, welcome. What happened? What does it mean?
Well, nobody knows just yet. That's the bottom line, because they're still counting the votes. About 90% of the votes have been counted. And with that 90% counted, Netanyahu and the right-wing bloc may still be a seat or two short of the 60-61 majority they need to form a government. Remember, 120 seats in Knesset, need at least 60. That's not a very functioning government at 60. 61 is barely functioning. I was a member of a government of 61. I'll tell you, you don't sleep, you don't drink, you don't have bodily functions because the opposition does filibusters all night long trying to bring down the government. But that could actually form a government, but nobody knows just yet. Nobody knows what Victor Lieberman is going to do with his 6, 7, or 8 seats, whether he'll join Netanyahu or whether he'll agree to join any coalition that has ultra-Orthodox parties in it. He's against those parties.
Is the 10% that is outstanding likely to change the seat count, which is at 59 for the Likud-led bloc at this point?
Well, for example, the soldier vote hasn't been counted, and the military vote, as in the United States, tends to be right of center. And so the greater chances that the military vote would redound to Bibi's benefit and could add another seat or two. But I think the biggest chance for Netanyahu to form a government will be through defections from blue and white. Remember, blue and white is not a real party. It has no ideological coherence. Its only organizing theme is to take down Bibi Netanyahu. And there are elements in that party, members of that party, who are ideologically closer to the Likud than they are to the left. So it wouldn't be that difficult for them to move over.
Now, that's what I expect will happen, but you've got to explain something. I follow this fairly obsessively for an American who's not Jewish, but I was reading Haaretz last night, and the bitterness in the columns of that newspaper is not unlike that which was felt in media elites across the United States in 2016. What gives? Why are they so bitter?
Well, because they'll do anything to take down Netanyahu, but the dynamic is very, very similar, Hugh, and that is that the Israeli electorate has been hearing about these accusations against Bibi for years now. They've grown accustomed to them. They've grown accustomed to the notion that he's going to defend himself in court. They've grown accustomed to the fact that the court cases will take years to adjudicate, and that generally speaking, the economy is good, security is good. As I've said on this program many times, it's always premature to eulogize Benjamin Netanyahu. He comes back and he comes back. He's a fierce political fighter. It turned out that Benny Gantz was possibly also being investigated for malfeasance in a business deal before he ran for office. So that really hurt his campaign, which was based all on the fact that he was upstanding on his that he was the probitious candidate vis-a-vis Bibi. It didn't hold up. And what's really amazing here, to my mind, is that Israel goes to the polls again, all right, for a third round, and it's the highest rate of voting we've had since 1999. Now, that's impressive.
Yeah, I can't imagine that the former conservatives who don't like Netanyahu want to force a fourth election, do they? I mean, I can't imagine it.
Well, he keeps on going up, not down. I think the fourth election would give him a bigger majority at this point. So, it didn't work, and that the effort to bring down Netanyahu failed. It simply failed. And that is incontrovertible, Hayom. We don't know whether he can form a government yet, but the attempt to take him down patently failed.
What are the prospects for the Trump peace plan? Are they improved by the result last night, or are they more distant than ever?
I think both parties, both blue and white and Likud, had embraced the Trump peace plan as the only realistic plan that has been tabled. In my memory, certainly since the Oslo Accords of 1993, it's the only realistic plan. And I don't think that would have changed. I don't think there's not many changes in basic policy, certainly vis-a-vis Iran, our security environment, Gaza. But I think, to my mind, the most significant thing going on politically today in Israel is not in Israel. It's Super Tuesday in the United States. And, you cannot rule the possibility that Bernie Sanders may win these primaries, that he may be the Democratic candidate, that he might even win the election. I know it's a small case, but if that's the case for Israel, that is a game changer for us strategically.
Okay, very, very quickly, do you predict the government will be formed now, finally?
I do.
Thank goodness, Michael, because then we can return to Iran policy and not guessing about whether Likud gets to 60. Michael Oren, thank you for calling in from Israel this morning to give us the latest at 59 and counting. Don't go anywhere, America. It's the Hugh Hewitt Show. Welcome back, America. It's Hugh Hewitt. That's Lil Nas X and Billy Ray Cyrus. They are featured in the brand new bestseller, Long Range, by America's favorite thriller writer now, C.J. Box. Long Range is going to debut #1 on the New York Times, is my bet. And Long Range may be the best of the 20 Joe Pickett novels. I say that with some regret because I prefer the Yosemite novel more than any. But C.J. Box joins me now. Good morning, C.J. How are you?
Good morning. It's great to be on with you on Super Thursday, and it's Yellowstone, not Yosemite.
No, that's it. Well, I've got Joe Biden disease, so you're like,
you know the thing.
You know the thing. You know about the.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by go. You know the thing.
You know the thing. Now, Chuck Box. I have been doing this show for 20 years, right? And I've probably done 10 author interviews a year. So I've done more than 200 author interviews. I have never found a book more difficult not to give a spoiler away than Long Range.
No kidding.
I think that is a compliment of the highest order.
Well, thank you, and I completely understand that. I've been thinking about this day for quite a long time, thinking how are you going to do this? How are we going to do this?
I have a plan. But lots of people have plans in this book that don't go right.
That's right.
So lots of people have plans. First of all, I want to assure everyone, Burgo Partners in the book and Stockman's there. If you're a CJ Box author, there are some things that are like comfort food and you expect to see. And do you have a checklist, by the way, that you've got to put Stockman's, Burgo Partner, and a few other things in?
You know, I don't have a checklist, but I think mentally as I'm writing each book, I kind of touch back, I kind of remember the foundations of it, of going back to the very first book, open season 20 years ago, and, try to hit those kind of touchstones and kind of grounds me, brings me back, and hopefully brings the reader back to where we got started.
Yeah, it's a pretty extraordinary arc of success, and it's still rising. I want to emphasize that. But 20 Joe Pickett novels later, did you ever in your wildest dream imagine that a Wyoming game warden could become a cult figure?
Absolutely not. No, what I should say is, I knew that, the world was waiting for a Wyoming game warden series, and I was the one to bring it.
All right, I know one thing I can talk to you about without giving any spoilers away, because it's early in the book, and I'm not going to tell people what happened, but I wasn't expecting grizzlies. We've talked about grizzlies before, but there just aren't that many of them, but it turns out I'm wrong. There are enough of them up where you live that it's becoming an issue.
It really has. It has become an issue. There's more and more. They were on the endangered species list for quite a long time, and now they proliferate in certain parts of Wyoming and the Mountain West. And the grizzly bear story you're referring to is based on a real incident that happened about a year and a half ago, where basically two homicidal grizzlies, unprovoked, attacked a hunting guide and his client. And killed the guide, and it became a big deal around Wyoming and around the hunting community because there had never been anything quite like it, where despite what the guide did, the precautions they took, the pepper spray they used, they were still killed.
Now, I'm 64 years old, so anyone who's listening will immediately remember, if they were Sports Illustrated readers, in 1969, there was a grizzly incident in Yellowstone that became a cover story in SI and then a book about killer grizzlies. It was impossible to forget, Chuck. Have you ever come across that story?
Oh yeah, yes. When you sent me the link, I read that. I'd never heard of that one before, but this is very similar. And there's the thing is what's kind of happened is that the theory is that some bears have become acclimated to hunters in the woods, and that a gunshot is just like a dinner bell. Once they hear it, they know there's an elk down. There's probably going to be a gut pile, which they want to eat. But in this particular instance, the hunters were bow hunters, so there was no shot, which makes it even creepier.
No, now there's a couple of details. First of all, the craft of writing. There is one scene. I'm not going to give away any details about who the three game wardens are, but the three game wardens are around the back of their truck, resting their elbows with their hands dangling inside. It sounds like you've seen that yourself.
I have seen it. I do ride-alongs with game wardens, and it's kind of common when people see each other out in the middle of nowhere in Wyoming to kind of stand around the back of the truck and dangle their hands in and talk. Yeah, that's a common scene.
It was just a very nice little detail. Now, tell me a little bit about, and this is what I can talk about without giving away anything as well, long-range rifles. There is an unmistakable tone of regret in long range that they have come to the wilds of the West.
Well, it's like I love to write about ethics and dilemmas and just I'm a hunter, know lots of hunters, and the technology and unbelievable advancement in rifle technology and optics, which is maybe even more important, have made it possible for anyone who can afford it to buy a rifle that you can hit a target at 1,000 yards, 1,200 yards, straight out of the box. And I know that to be the case because I did it. When I was researching the novel, I went to a place called Gunworks in Cody, Wyoming, where they produce these unbelievable rifles. And, I was hitting targets I couldn't see with the naked eye right within minutes. And that is, people in that community, whether they're competition hunters or big game hunters, know that the technology has gone well beyond what anybody ever thought was possible.
As Nate had said, page 127, and any man could now be a sniper. The average Joe hunter could own a technologically advanced and engineered rifle that was beyond anything a military sniper had possessed 20 years before. So you're saying at the turn of the century, the highest grade sniper rifle is less than equal to what the average Joe hunter can obtain today.
That's exactly true, and I'm not doing it in a pejorative way.
No, you're not.
It's all horrible. I heard a great argument just very recently from a hunting guide, in fact, who said he had one of these rifles and that he carries it with him. So if his client happens to wound an animal that's suffering at a long distance, he can dispatch it and take care of everything very quickly. But at the same time, it's unnerving to think that. People can have these kind of weapons, if they're not, if they don't have the ethics you want them to.
Now, Joe loses his truck early in this, so people are going to have to wait and see how, in fact, there's always a truck angle. But at one point I began to write down the number of simultaneous plots you had going on, and I stopped at 6. And I mean, how did this take comparatively more time to plot out in detail than the average Joe Pickett novel, which normally has 3 or 4, but this was at 6 within 15 or 20 pages?
It did take a little longer. It's a little more technical because of all of the plot threads that are going. Hopefully, they're not confusing.
Oh, they're not. They're not.
The thing is, what's fun to do, what's challenging to do is to have a lot of plot threads like that going that all come together in the end.
And so, did you have to land? That's actually, I don't even know how you did it. I have no idea how you pulled this all together because did it take a month of sitting in the basement looking out that window with your head knuckled on your eyebrow?
Well, I no longer sit in the basement. Now I have an office on the top of our horse barn.
You've moved up in the world.
Yeah, I have. I walk through the horses every day to go to work. But yes, it did take a lot of plotting and planning and outlining to get there. But it all. I know this is not a spoiler. It all started with the inspiration of Judge Hewitt and County Attorney Dwayne Patterson. Once I had those two characters, it all fell together.
I am back. Judge Hewitt is back. Short, dark, and twitchy,
so am I.
And so is County Prosecutor Patterson. But the plot twists in this are remarkable. Let me tell you. Have you had any reaction from fans yet?
Well, no, because today is the debut. It just launched today, this morning.
Is Amazon in any way impacted because of coronavirus?
Not that I'm aware of. Amazon is so hard to figure when you look at the rankings of the books. I don't think anybody, other than those that at Amazon, really know how it works. I have been watching the ranking go up by the hour, but I don't know how you really track that.
Where are you going on tour, C.J. Box?
Well, I'm talking to you from Scottsdale, Arizona, this morning. We had an event last night, and then tomorrow, or tonight, actually, I go to Denver, and then Tulsa, and everything's. It's a 2-week tour. It's all on cjbox.net if anybody wants to come, and I would encourage them to do so.
I'm looking at a Houston stop, a Lexington. You're going to Houston? Really? They got a broken water main down there, and of course you're making it through the Mountain West. What I'm getting at is, I think Joe's broken out, and has he broken into TV? I know your other character has. I want people to get that word. Who's broken into TV?
Well, the other series, or it's kind of half series that I do, Cassie Duel series, Bitter Roots came out last year, is going to be a television show on ABC this fall, done by David E. Kelly, who's well-known, done a million shows on TV. And then Joe Pickett is in development at Paramount Television, probably destined for Charter Spectrum. They're launching a new service, and it's been very exciting and crazy after all these years that all of a sudden there's 2 television shows in the works.
Have you gone Hollywood on us, CJ?
Oh, absolutely. No, I have not.
Yeah, you're wearing black shirts, black T-shirts. The boots are gone. You're wearing high birds or whatever. All birds is what the Hollywood crowd is wearing now. You've just gone over to the dark side?
No, I haven't, but I will tell you, I went out and visited the writing room of for the Joe Pickett show a couple of weeks ago in Santa Monica, and it was fascinating. Everybody was so young working on it, but they'd read all the books.
Oh, how did that go over? Were there any Westerners there who have picked up, things like it's going to get Western around here pretty quick? Have they picked it up?
They had. They actually had little 3x5 cards that they pasted all over the walls of the room, big room, and for plotting a 10-episode series and all the little hallmarks. It was kind of eerie. It was like watching, looking at my entire life in one room.
Well, this is just so super.
23-year-old writers.
This is so super because they're you again. Back when you were a starting writer, and they're working with C.J. Box, and they will love. I always say start at the beginning and end. You don't have to. You can read long range and then go back and work. You can go and order it today, and you'll like it in hardback. But congratulations, C.J. This will be a #1 New York Times bestseller, and I have to say it is the equal of any other one that you have done. It is. Hat is off to you, and after a few months, we'll come back and talk about the spoilers that we can't talk about this morning.
Oh, I'd love to do that, and thank you so much. I appreciate over the years how you've read the books, and we keep having these conversations, and I just really appreciate it. And I listen every single stinking day.
Did you hear Tom Cotton just give you a shout out that the thing he's happiest about on Super Tuesday is that it's drop day for the new book, Long Range?
No,
he just did that. I'm trying to get news out of a United States senator, and he's standing by his mailbox waiting for Long Range from C.J. Box to arrive. Take care, C.J. Box, our author extraordinaire of the day, the new book Long Range on Super Tuesday. It will get you through a long night. It got me through a full day of flights, hours and hours of flights. You know what else got me through that? ReliefFactor.com. Someday maybe ReliefFactor.com will end up in a CJ novel. Joe Pickett could use it. I mean, he describes long horseback rides that leave him sore all over. But long horseback rides, if that's your thing, ReliefFactor.com is for you. If it's long runs, that's my thing. Relief Factor is for me. If it's a long commute, and that's what many of you have right now, it is definitely for you. I carry in Kirkman, Resveratrol, and Omega. $19.95. ReliefFactor.com, ReliefFactor.com. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back. It is The Hugh Hewitt Show.
Portions of The Hugh Hewitt Show are brought to you by Food for the Poor.
Welcome back, America. It's Super Tuesday. I remind you, get out and vote, vote, vote. This is Vote Bernie headquarters for Republicans. I voted for Bernie already in my absentee in Virginia. You were voting today, Virginia, Tennessee. Prayers for the people in Nashville. Everyone else, get out and vote. California, of course, Bernie's got quite the operation here. But vote the whole ballot. Get all the way down to Catherine Barger for county supervisor, the only semi-moderate person in all of Southern California left on a board of supervisors north of Orange County is Catherine Barger. That's not true about some of the Inland Empire counties, but Catherine Barger in L.A. is definitely the person you want to vote for. In Orange County, Dr. Ken Williams. On the Orange County Board of Education, Dr. Ken is being attacked by the left, and so go out there and support him. But wherever you are, whatever state you're in, vote the whole ballot, not just for Bernie at the top. The President of the United States knows that it's Super Tuesday. He has tweeted. The president writes, Texas and Oklahoma, Mini Mike Bloomberg will kill your drilling, fracking, and pipelines. Petroleum-based anything is dead. Energy jobs gone. Don't vote for Mini Mike. And then the president added 16 minutes ago, Mini Mike Bloomberg can never recover from his incompetent debate performances. Also, as mayor, he was very bad under pressure. A choker. So I guess we know the president does not want to win tonight. I want Bernie to win, I really do. But I also want you to go to HughHewitt.com and think about making some alms, giving the gift of love and food to our friends in Guatemala. We've got so many people over the world who are actually physically starving. Many of them are in Guatemala. Food for the poor can be your arms, your hands, your delivery vehicle. If you go to HughHewitt.com and you roll up to the top of the screen, you will see there the Food for the Poor banner. And it says very simply, feed starving families. For $80, you can bless a child in Guatemala with food for a year and water for life. Please call 855-359-4653. That's 855-359-HOPE, 855-359-4653. 1946, 1973. 359-4673. That's how I remember numbers. 855-359-4673. But the easiest thing is just to go to HughHewitt.com and find the banner. You cannot miss it. You just have to be at the top of the website. Now, let me close by checking markets overseas. Brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com. Andrew Del Rey, Todd Avakian, AndrewandTodd.com. I have never, ever seen, well, the 10-year Treasury is no longer 1.09. It's up to 1.14, and that's not surprising because the business story of the day brought to you by AndrewandTodd.com, and they are lenders with Sierra Pacific Mortgage. They are not brokers. It's not a call center. I know Andrew very well. I know Todd very well. They're wonderful, generous believers. I did a Bible study for 20-plus years with Andrew Del Rey. It's not surprising it ticked up, but I've still never seen interest rates below 1.2%. Yesterday and today. Right this morning, it's at 1.14%. That's the 10-year Treasury. That's not the interest rate you'll get on your 15 or your 30-year mortgage. That's the interest rate on which it's based, which means if you're ever going to refinance your house, if you're a veteran, you're ever going to put no money down on a house, you can have one VA loan at a time. If you need to consolidate debt, there's never been a better time to do it. Absolutely, positively, never been a better time to do it. All-time lows. And so that means even if you refinanced last year or 3 months ago, just give Andrew and Todd a call, 888-888-1172. On one day, the stock market gained $1.1 trillion. The Dow Jones Industrial Average went up yesterday 1,293 points, 5%. All right, and overseas overnight, Great Britain went up 1.72% and Germany went up 2.13%. I have no way of knowing how the market today will do overall because it's had such wild swings, but I think the world is coming to grips with the fact that driving in America is a lot more dangerous than coronavirus. Coronavirus will make you sick, and it will in fact kill people. 6 people are dead in Washington State, all from one old age home where people had compromised immunity systems, had respiratory trouble, they're just old, and it's dangerous for old people, as the flu usually is, as pneumonia, the old man's friend, they call it. That's what this is. It's a respiratory disease. But 36,000 people a year are killed in automobile accidents. I guarantee you You are in more danger on the 405 this morning if you're driving in LA or in Washington State or Oregon if you're on the 5 than you are from coronavirus. The updates keep coming, but say some prayers for Nashville. 9 dead in Nashville this morning as a consequence of tornadoes overnight. Anyone who's ever lived in the tornado alley of the Midwest knows what that siren means in the middle of the night. There's not much you can do except get in a bathtub or go to the basement. And I'm sure there will be a lot of digging out, and people are being cautioned to go outside. If you're listening to me in Nashville, be very, very careful. 40 buildings destroyed. We'll have more details on that. But tomorrow we will round up for you Super Tuesday. Bernie Sanders might emerge tonight with an unbreakable lead, despite the efforts of all the establishment Democrats to do what all the establishment Republicans tried to do, including me in 2016, which was to find a conventional Republican, not Donald Trump. Turns out we were wrong. Donald Trump could win. I think the same thing is probably true about Bernie Sanders, and we will find out tonight. I think it's certainly going to be true in California, which is the big enchilada. Texas not far behind it, but roughly half the delegates of California. I'll have everything, all the news for you to run down completely tomorrow. Don't forget, Catherine Barger, Ken Williams, all these different people. Vote the whole ballot, America, the whole ballot. And I'll be back tomorrow. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Generalissimo. Talk to you tomorrow on the next Hugh Hewitt Show.